down a liberal, and he's notorious for this. And our first interview was he was to ask me some questions and then or give me the questions so that I could at least be thinking about it. This was our first on the air type thing. So he walks in and I start to talk to him and he goes, and what do you think you're, I would have killed him. And I drove all the way back to Liberal thinking, what did I say? I had no clue when I said I was God.
Well, I'm just going to start out. I really read these questions. It's what I do to get the same question to everyone. You can answer them. If you don't want to answer them, you don't have to answer. And when did you serve in the Kansas legislature? What years?
Was elected in 1974, served 1975 and 1976.
Okay, and you were in the House?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you were a Democrat or a Republican?
A Democrat at that time.
Okay, and you just were visiting with me about that. Why were you a Democrat at that time, do you suppose?
Basically because my grandmother was Catholic and my dad was Catholic, obviously, and then their politics leaned towards the Democrats. And I'm the oldest of 8 children, and every one of those were Democrats. Now, I'm not sure that they still are, but we were born into it.
Yeah. And you have filed for re-election this year, or for election to the Senate, but you're not a Democrat any longer.
That's right.
What happened?
I had been asked by some individuals to run for the Senate position. And one of the biggest concerns was the fact that I was no longer a registered Democrat. They didn't think that was a problem either. And probably between all of the spending on one side, in my mind's eye, on the Democratic ticket, the Republicans seem to be more conservative. And it's now 18 years after the fact that I served in the House. And I think probably if I had to choose a party and to run on it, then the Republican ticket's what I'm going to do.
Good. Why did you run the first time?
Oh, I hope you have time for this. The reason I ran the first time is that I was married to a county attorney at the time. He was Republican and I was still registered Democrat. We had gone to a dinner for, if you recall, a man by the name of Vern Miller, who was running for governor at the time. He was a good buddy of my ex-husband's, now ex-husband. And we were on our way back home from that dinner that they had had for him. It's a fundraiser. And I said, why don't you run for governor? Meaning to my ex. And I said, they didn't say anything about Vern that isn't true about you. And he said, all he ever wanted to do was be a judge. That's all he was interested in. And he says, why don't you get involved in state politics? And basically, when he asked me to do it, I had no clue even how to spell it, let alone be one. Very naive, very young. And so that's how we got started. And then it got mentioned to a very active, outstanding, dynamic lady over in Cimarron by the name of Jody Flake. She found out about it and said, do you need help? And I said, yes. And I said, you're my campaign manager. And she said, great. And we went from there, and we had 2 opponents in the primary. We beat them 2-1. Had a man, the incumbent was running for a 4th term, and we beat him 2-1. We just, and right, well, quit.
Okay.
Talking. You asked questions, sorry.
Well, how did you run that first time? What kind of campaign did you run? Did you do door-to-door, media type? Or?
We did. It was basically door-to-door because we had lots of helpers and not a lot of money. And I'm not real good at asking people for money. And so it's just part of me.
You brought up 2 things. Who was the incumbent that you beat?
Don, a man by the name of Don Spots from Ashland.
Okay. And you were one of the youngest at that time. You were
24 years old, and after the primary found out I was pregnant. So I had a few strikes against me. I was female, too young, too female, and too pregnant.
That's interesting. You were the first one that we know of that gave birth while you were holding the office. When was your baby born?
April the 4th, 1975.
Oh, so it was you were still in session then when he was born.
We knew that the baby was supposed to be born sometime in April, and I told or promised my constituents that I would not let it interfere. Well, I was a first-time mother. What did I know? So what I ended up doing was I called my husband after I'd been to the doctor, and I was seeing Dr. Morris in Topeka, and we'd already made the arrangements that if we didn't get through session in time, that Stormont Vale would be the birthplace. So we called the doctor on Thursday, or when I saw the doctor on Thursday, and my husband drove in from Cimarron because it was going to get time, and my idea was, okay, if I go in Friday evening, have them induce labor, because I'm so close, then I can go have this baby Friday night after work, and by Monday I can be back in my seat. Talk about naive. So Thursday night, my husband came up. We went out and ate Mexican food. This is a hint. Don't eat Mexican food when you're about ready to give birth. It induces. So between Thursday night and Friday morning, then all hell broke loose is what it amounts to. Mark was born at about the same time that he was supposed to be, and it was supposed to be introduced. We had more people. I mean, the phones were ringing, the flashes were flashing. I mean, I've never in my life, it was like nobody ever had a baby before. They wanted to film the birth. They came in and asked if they could film it, and I was in no mood to say yes.
Well, now the house is still in session, and when did you
I got back.
You were in the hospital Friday, Saturday?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I went back, I want to say it was Wednesday morning.
But that must have been a busy week when you're just going from sun-up to sundown.
It was exactly the day that I got out of the hospital. I ran over to, I think it was Macy's or something, I had to sit on something, but because it was still stitches, whatever. Anyway, went over, had my hair done. My mother's with me carrying this baby. We walk into the house. Everything stops. And they have the guys with the Zoom cameras, and WIBW is there to film. Pete McGill came up to my mother, who's trailing behind me because I can't carry this baby. I'm heading for my seat. Pete McGill comes up and tries to take the baby from my mother's arms, and she goes, "Who is that? Who the hell is that man? Get that big kid." She got to argue with him. It's funny. He goes to the well of the house, and it was right after Roots had played. It was a big deal. McGill takes his baby and holds it up over his head. It was hysterical.
How did people react to that in the house? It was a novelty.
Absolutely marvelous. The Democrats gave tons of stuffed donkeys, and the Republicans gave tons of stuffed elephants. We got baby booties from all over the U.S. We got gifts and letters of congratulations from Fond du Lac, Michigan. All kinds of, there was.
It really made the news.
Oh yeah, we were in. Yes.
Yeah. Well, do you think it changed the way you were seen in the house, or the way you could function, or
when I first got up there, I think a lot of the old timers thought, number one, yes, she's an oddity, or a novelty, or both. And but what happened was they found out that I wasn't, even though I was young and female, that I still had a mind of my own, and I was quite verbal. You gotta be. I was the oldest of 8 kids. But anyway, so then I believe I gained their respect and support. And then once I had the baby, then they were family to me. They treated me real well, and they were not patronizing at all.
Well, that's interesting. We found in our study of the women in the Kansas legislature that prior to 1974, there were never more than 4 women in the House at the same time. And you were there right after this big change happened. You were part of that first group where there were 8, yeah.
Right. Well, I think there was only 6 when I was there.
Okay.
I might stand corrected on that, but it seemed to me there was like 2.
Can you think of any reason? And ever since then, now, we've seen growing numbers tell. There are 36 now in the House.
We knocked down some barriers. We found, the guys that were there, the guys that were running the show, found out that we weren't totally naive and that we had opinions and that people, it seemed to me, even in the campaigning, when we went out, it was easier for me to sit down and talk to the boys over coffee or the gals and, doing whatever, than it was for a man to do it. It's just, we're just easier to talk to. And if you can find someone who's easy to talk to and at the same time can be effective and articulate with ideas that can take them to speak and work on, that's why I think that's where the change came.
Well, you may be a pathbreaker too, in a way, having that baby there. That really was a sort of an eye-opener. Everybody probably thought it couldn't be done or it would be less than wonderful if it were. Now, that was your first year?
It was my first year.
What about the second year? Do you think that...
I hated what was going on because it was, the people there were wonderful to me. But I was a first-time mom. I had no clue on what it was like. And we were away from its daddy, and that was really impacting his job, and he didn't like it any more than we did. And the second year, there's a lot more to it. You're not big and you're not pregnant and don't look like you just waddled in. And there was a couple of individuals that would appear they weren't being patronizing anymore. They were being more friendly than they probably should have been, or it was taken by some other folks that way. So, as a young female, it made it extremely difficult to deal.
We're sort of investigating, did a close relative or a good friend of yours precede you in the House or Senate, or anyone in your family maybe?
Not in my immediate family. There was a Tony Schartz from way back when. I was his page when he was a member of the House, and that was in the early 60s, I believe.
I see.
And
you think that experience kind of made you...
I liked it. And frankly, if I'd have known more about what you had to do to run a campaign, I probably never got anywhere close to it because it's a lot of work. And but once I got up there and found out that I was good at it, and that's probably the biggest thing that people will ask, why? Well, when there's something in your life that you know you're good at, you want to continue to do it. And now I'm in a position where I can. My son is nearly 18, and he doesn't need me right there. He has his father here in town, and so there isn't anybody around to tell me no, I can't do it.
Now that's true. We find a lot of women saying the same thing you're saying there, that sort of planned their entry into political office around the age of their children and everything.
Had to.
As a freshman legislator, did you have a mentor, someone who was down there that kind of helped you get on the right committees and everything? Or?
I guess if there was anybody that they didn't lead me around, but at least they helped.
Yeah.
They helped me out. I remember Jack Steiniger, Frank Gaines, and more of them were on the Senate side than in the House. But in the House, probably Mike Johnson from Abilene.
Okay.
He treated me super, and he was very helpful with my son. Fred Weaver, who I just adored. There's so many. The list goes on and on and on.
Well, that's good. What committees did you serve on while you were there?
I served on the Ag and Livestock Committee as well as the Education Committee.
Okay, and your district was sort of a rural...
It was everything, it was rural. A little bit of Dodge City, but it was mostly rural Ford County, but there were 4 counties.
Is your district, the Senate district, include your whole
former district plus
exactly,
more.
plus an additional 2 counties, which is good news.
Okay. What probably the birth of your baby, you've already said that was probably your most vivid memory. Is there anything else that you remember particularly?
About my time in the house? I think probably it was odd, the amount of notoriety that we did get, just over the fact of having a child. It was like, isn't this done all the time? And so I thought it was diminishing the real things that needed to be done. My mother, obviously, she had 8, and she never got a byline.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that happened, even though it wasn't planned.
Mm-hmm.
And it was real hard on everybody. A lot of sacrifices had to be made that would not normally have to have been made. But it did, in fact, get Western Kansas a great deal of recognition. I was featured in a Time magazine article with 5 other ladies, with a picture, very pregnant, very bad back, standing up for a stand-up vote. And the article was entitled, "Women Still Number 2, but Trying Harder."
Oh, how interesting. I'll have to look that article up.
It's May of 1976.
May of 1976.
But it was showing women breaking barriers.
Yeah.
I think they even had an Episcopalian priestess,
Well, I think that's why we wanted to interview you so badly, because we sort of felt like you were one of the very special few. And having a young child, was different at that time. There weren't other people that had done that, really, very, very many of them. Let me ask you a few questions about yourself now. You said, let me back up. You didn't run again then in 76. And you decided to run again this year.
Yes.
In 92.
Yes.
And you shared with us a little earlier why someone asked you to run. Or...
I was asked to run, and plus because of my... I've gained maturity, obviously, and because it was something that I knew that I was good at, and I really, really, truly enjoyed it. And now, because of the company that I work for, they've allowed me the time off to do whatever I need to do, and they're very supportive of that, and I know I can make a difference, and it's just, I really feel bad that a lot of the same people that I served with before have either deceased, or no longer in the House or in the Senate, because it'd be good to go back to see the family again.
Yeah.
On the other hand, since there's going to be a major change probably in both houses, then it would give me an opportunity to take the experience that I already had, even though it's 17, 18 years later, and maybe be able to get some decent appointments. And
this is real interesting, because really, if you're elected, when you're elected, you will serve both. There's sort of 2 trends among women when they're right out of college, how you were before, and then after their families are grown, more or less you're in your age group now, so you're going to have served with both of those times in your life. That'll be interesting. Are you a native of Kansas? Or
yes.
Were you born around here?
I was born in Dodge City, even though my parents were farmers over by Cimarron.
Okay, and you grew up on a farm then with,
yes.
You've already mentioned 7 brothers and sisters.
Yes.
What kind of things did you do while you were growing up?
Drove tractor. Milked cows. Changed an awful lot of diapers.
You were one of the older ones then.
I was the oldest.
You were the oldest.
And then in 1974, we even inherited one more when my aunt and uncle were killed in a plane crash. So Mom raised 9.
Wow. Did you go to college?
I did some time at Dodge City Community College. Sounds like prison, doesn't it? And then a little bit of time in Denver at Parks Business College.
Oh.
Never a formal 4-year university. I mean, there was too many of us, and back in those days, as you well know, I mean, that was not a priority for females. We're supposed to go find husbands, you see. And
it's true. Now, your father was a farmer. Did your mother work outside the home at all?
no, she had enough to do on the farm, helping drive tractor and truck and harvest and raising children.
Did you belong to any organizations when you were in school or anything that influenced
Debate,
you?
maybe.
You were a debater.
I was
You
in
mentioned
debate.
that. That was important. Then you felt preparation for.
Right, I just wished I'd have been better at it and studied harder.
Well, no, that was one of our questions. There are a few people that said that. There were a few other people mentioned organizations like 4-H.
I was in 4-H.
That might have prepared them a little bit for the legislative process.
Having been in 4-H, it did, mainly just from the leadership roles. And I think mostly because I was the oldest of the, rather than any organized organization. I mean, we had our own ball team, so that's, I think, where I got most of it, and probably from my folks, and they were perfectionists, my dad especially, and they instilled a lot of really good values as far as hard work, and the old adage about, the harder you work, the more you'll get ahead. Well, that'd be fine if we had everybody else working with us on that. But
now, did your parents support you in your election?
Oh yeah, not money-wise, because they couldn't.
They helped you, and they were in your district.
Very supportive.
And you mentioned your mother came down after your baby was born.
Yes, she helped me with the baby.
Did she stay down in the next session, or what
No.
did you do with the baby then?
The only time that she, he was with me most of the time, and because at that point, then he's 9 months, and he's just starting to walk, and we were able to take him to the well of the house so that they could do a progress report. So Mike Johnson from Abilene took him down and said, "Hey, look at this, guys! He's walking." They made such. It was wonderful. They were just so
and everybody
special.
remembers that. I think.
Yes, yes.
It was a highlight. What's been did you work before you were elected the first time?
Right, I was a executive secretary for Cimarron Insurance for Lee Warner.
Okay, and you've been working since then?
Well, after I got out of the legislature, I went back to doing some legal work, and for a short time. And then when the big divorce came in '78, and then right after that, IBM hired me. And so I went to work for them and traveled at one time 33 western Kansas counties, and sold hardware, software, and computer services. It was great. It was a very, very highly reputable company, and gave me a lot of exposure, and so I was able to visit with a lot of business people, consumers, and government people, dealing with them, and really feel like that's another reason why I'm running, is because all of those counties that I covered before with IBM, they're all in this district, and I know firsthand what kind of difficulties, what their opportunities and their problems are.
So you're going to probably address different issues this time around.
Yes. Oh, yes. And really the odd thing is that the issues haven't really changed. It's ongoing. But these people are tired of having no voice or no control, but they're still paying the bill. And it's time we need to wake some folks up. And what I'd really like to see happen is build a coalition for legislators west of 81. Not to cut our not to cut the ties that bind, but if we could just get together. There's legislators up there now that don't even speak to one another, and they might live 3 counties away from one another.
And there's regional
nuts.
issues that need to be addressed.
Exactly. And the thing that is, you can't go up there and just be a piece of the woodwork. Not in this day and age. And so we're going to make some changes. I've got my soapbox.
Good. No, that's great. What kind of sacrifices do you feel, having been there for 2 years? Eating all the time.
Eating all the time. It's nice to go to lunch. It is. I mean, there's no way. Before, when I was married, the husband had the income. And so what I made back then, which if you all recall, was, I think, $13,020 for a 2-year term.
Yeah.
You're going, excuse me, but isn't this called poverty? And now it's a little bit better than that, but it's still, for the time that you devote to it, I mean, even in this campaigning, and I know that supposedly campaigning takes more time, but I remember once I was elected before, I spent a great deal of time studying and researching, and when you come home, that doesn't mean that you just hang it up. because you have to study, you still have speeches and parades, and everybody's calling you and wanting something, and so your private time is history.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another reason why I think this probably works, since I'm single now and have been, and so it's not going to interfere.
Yeah. You won't
in
be
a relationship.
sacrificing like you were before.
Not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not like that.
Now, is your son campaigning with you?
Yes.
Yes.
He looks really good.
Are you going to take him back down and show it?
I'm hoping that when we go down you betcha, when we go down for the swearing in, the inaugural part of it, you bet he's going to be my dance partner when we walk in.
It's wonderful. Do you think that, now, this is really probably not possible for you to say now, but so I'm going to have to interview you again and ask you this question. Do you think it will have changed the way women function in the legislature, the way women are seen? Do you think, as a woman, that you will have more power than a woman maybe did 18 years ago when you were in the legislature?
Of course. I mean, just by the sheer numbers.
Okay.
I think probably and it's happened to me in business.
Okay.
Even with IBM or any of the telecommunications firms that I've represented, you do. I mean, you have a lot more credence now, and having served before, yes, that'll add to it as well.
Well, it'll be interesting to compare. There are more women in leadership roles and chairman of committees and that kind of thing. If that really does make a difference, it should. Is there anything else that you would like to tell me that I haven't asked you on this?
I guess one thing, I was nominated for Outstanding Young Woman of the Year and went to Washington, D.C. for a seminar on that in, I can't remember, 75 or 6. But one of the things that burned deep in me was that women should want to get involved because it's in their heart of hearts that they want to get involved. I don't believe that it's good for females to try and find other female candidates just because they're female. We don't want the guys doing it, so I don't want our roles to be reversed like that, for us to be I can't use the word, but I think sometimes we just got to make sure that our attitude is right, that we're going up there to do a good job and not to show the guys up or not to show whatever. And don't just get people or try and recruit people just because they've got a pulse. It doesn't work, because then we're no better off. And all of those people up there, whether we end up being part of that group or not, are messing with people's lives and money. And that is not what we're there for.
Well, you can compare something I just thought of that isn't in our questions, but because you're kind of a unique person, I mean, you are the only one like this. Is it harder to raise money, and do you think that women candidates are perceived differently now than they were 18 years ago?
Back in '74 when I campaigned, I got money out of the blue. I mean, I think it just kind of showed up. Today, and like we were talking earlier, I think my entire campaign fund was $5,000. Now they're telling us that in order to run a campaign, you have to have $35,000 to $55,000 to cover the same kind of territory.
Good. Right.
That's trash, folks. And you have to get out and hustle big time. And yes, now it's really amazing. I'm getting money out of the heavens, which is good news. But at the same time, it's real difficult to try and find the time to be able to get out there and do it and be able to afford to do the kind of campaigning that you really need to. Door to door is great. I'm 18 years older. I just walked a parade the other day, and I found out that now I know why I ran when I was 24 and hesitated for so many years. I about died. But we walked it, and people appreciate that because so many have gotten totally away from it. It's like we owe them the living. It's like the old adage. When you go to the dance, you dance with the one that brung you. And when I go to Topeka, I'll remember who my dance partner is. Because too many times these people get elected to, whether it be a seat in Topeka or in Washington, and forget who they're representing. And I don't want it to be that way anymore. I don't want some female to go up there just for the grins of it and give the rest of us a black eye.
It does seem like that one woman does sort of represent all women in a way, where one man doesn't represent all men. I mean,
exactly, and that's why I think when even, and I don't know how much of this we want to continue with, but when Penny got in, and
I'll go ahead, please.
This interview with Marian Reynolds was on July 27th, 1992 in Dodge City.